and we had a new guy come in, and he actually started an exercise science program because I asked for it. Yeah,
That's the kind of college you want to go to, right? That'll start a program for you.
Yeah, so it was self-designed program, and then that program it exploded. Within 5 years, there was over 100 kids in the major.
Wow.
And we just, that man now works on my staff at Extra Innings Performance. Just an amazing mentor, and just like a big time forward thinker, and who saw this opportunity to help a student, but also to, build a program, which is literally what he did. So it's really, really cool. And I was just, everything kind of fell into place, and sure, I had some injuries to deal with, but that also allowed me to have some empathy for the clients and athletes that I, literally thousands of them over the years, that you can create these connections with, and you really, sometimes you have to have these experiences, these hard times, to help us learn more about ourselves, and then ultimately to help others. So that's what led me to the field of exercise science. And in 2009, I had been working at a facility in New Hampshire, down in the Hanover area, Dartmouth, and had an opportunity to open a facility again back in my hometown, and not something in a rural, not very affluent area that I was met with a lot of skepticism. But it's
like, okay, I'm going to start this cash-based business in an area where there's not a lot of cash, right? People
you got it. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. Let's roll on that.
I know. But, it's like, I was just so passionate about it. And it was like, it just felt right. And, I had the opportunity to start it up. We're about 800 square feet. And we quickly outgrew that and had to add staff. And we moved 3 years later into the facility I'm in now. And we've outgrown this one years ago, but we continue to, just forge along. And that's Extra Innings Performance, or XIP. And then the online platform I developed maybe 8 or 9 years ago. A lot of our athletes would either go away to college. We have a big crew of professional snowcross riders, so snowmobile. And in season, they're in season right now. It was like Excel programming, just, it wasn't ideal. So I started looking into when the training apps became we're really just coming on. I was doing a lot of research and figuring out what we wanted to go with, and settled on it's a third-party app that we use, and that carries all of I'm able to input programs, which in time here you're going to see, and it carries my video library. And that's how I'm able to interact and connect with our athletes all over the map. Where we've got athletes in Canada and the US, primarily North America, but we have now seen a few coming from Europe, and a lot of that is just from expanding marketing.
And where are most of your people in the States? Like, are most of them on the East Coast, or are you seeing people start to kind of diffuse from all over the place due to people's uptake of these kind of programs?
Yeah, so COVID really created an online boom in all sorts of health fitness, which is such a great thing. It's awesome, but it also is kind of watered down. It's hard for folks to sort through. There's a lot of crap. We joke, and in my world of, true exercise scientists, it's like we've watched this growth, but also this decay of what evidence-based training application is. And people are just very eager to get fit, get healthy. And that's awesome. That's such a great mindset and place to be in. But you also now there's a lot of hurdles with like what is safe, first off, what is safe and also effective training, and where should I invest? Because there's so many choices. You can breeze through the app store and find literally thousands, or a guy like myself, our app, you're going to have to find us through social media marketing or Google searches. And then really, my hope is that through providing more education, in those platforms, that people will start to, make more informed decisions for their own health, fitness, performance.
So how do people
Um,
figure that out when, like you said, there's a gazillion options out there, right? And when you're scrolling through the app store, there's a little bit of a description. But what should people be doing as they're vetting somebody that they're going to spend, not just spend money with, but more than that, entrust their health to? Because like you said, right, you come from a background of having injury. You're also from a background that specializes in physiology of the human body, and so you
mhm.
understand those things. There's a lot of people that are doing it to make money, and like for a
Yeah.
guy like me, that's one of the things that when we, you and I met at Winter Strong,
Yeah.
down here at Bert Soren's place at Sorinex just about a month ago, and that was one of the things that really kind of attracted me to you in terms of like, hey, let's have a conversation about this, because I have had 3 back surgeries and I'm
Yeah.
56 years old, and I'm a guy who has a very long history in training, and I used to do triathlons, and I played football, and I did CrossFit, and now I'm really like trying to stay functionally fit as I get older, but at the
Mhm.
same time not put myself back in that position where my back gets smoked and now I can't do anything again for 3 months. So
Yeah.
that was what really kind of, when you started telling me your story, I was like connected to that. But there's a ton of people like me out there, and it's hard to figure out who should I be working with. So how do you vet that?
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's no different than, look at the world of therapy and medicine now, where you really don't have a lot of choice a lot of times. And you're stuck with what you get. And in this case, you do have the opportunity to vet somebody. And I think that what you said there, like, you and I connected because of a conversation,
Right.
and our platform is set up that way. So rather than trying to drive like lots of volume, although, I'm also trying to make money, sure. I'm not gonna if
There's
100
nothing wrong
people
with
want.
running a business, man. You got to pay the bills,
Right.
right? We all have to do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. But I also understand that how I have things set up, it isn't going to yield the massive volume of new subscribers or athletes, and we consider everybody an athlete. So that conversation. So back to what you asked, how does somebody vet that? You want to have as much interaction, communication with this person prior as possible. Now, know that you know most of us are busy and we're running a business and raising families, and like our intellectual time and property is valuable, but I always try to connect with folks prior, because sometimes, hey, as much as I think what we have going is the best thing out there, it might not be the best opportunity for you to, or Joe over here or whatever. Like, so we want to make sure that it's safe, effective, and also going to be sustainable for you. So just having that conversation, if you can get that, I think a lot of most people, consumers, or the athletes, they're going to get a pretty good feel from that. Hey, can I have 10 minutes to just chat with you on the phone before I pull the trigger on this program? That's a great way to approach it. Now, also just look at their background. Do they have a background in exercise science and physiology and experience and in the trenches time, or are they? Is this just an opportunity to take advantage of a certain population through good marketing, media, etc. And that's the reality now, is that we have social media platforms that give us the ability to influence to use that term, to influence others, and people are easily influenced, and sometimes it's not for a product or in this case it's the human body we're dealing with. It might not be the best safest approach, nor will it yield sustainable results, and ultimately that's what we want.
Yeah.
um,
I
the
looked
last
at
thing I want is for people to be, to feel as though like they move backwards when they've made this emotional decision to invest in their health. and well-being. And money aside, like we want to make sure that we're moving forward. So that conversation, most humans can figure that out pretty quick if this is going to work well. And then, we have our platform is set up in such a way that you can purchase standalone programs from the website. But then what I really encourage is for people, if they're not doing a one-on-one, which is a training option that we have, and that's likely what you'll start with due to your injury history. That's something that can be a really great start for somebody to get that one-on-one and individualized program where we can really modify and cater to what you need. And, even if it's a virtual assessment, an experienced individual like myself, I'm not the only one. There's plenty of great coaches out there. We're going to be able to use our experience to build an effective and safe program for you that, again, is sustainable. But then the other thing that we do is what I call team training. And this would be the same way that, when I've programmed for colleges and high schools. And if you have the football team, everybody gets to interact through this platform. Right. So Eric and Adrian could be training at different times. They're saying, in the case of football, you might have linemen, receivers, special teams, etc. But if we're both, say we're skill guys and we have our program that the strength coach has designed, we might go in at different times to train, but we're able to see, you're able to see my progress. There's a community team sort of feel to it that you can interact with me. So right now we have our no off season team training. It's a 12-week program. There's guys like that you met out at Winter Strong or training on the team. I train. We've got guys in the Northeast, guys in the West, and everybody's able to interact through that platform. They can see what Brian in Vermont is doing. He might have a post about, it was snowing here today, so instead of this, I for my ruck, I got out and I found a buck track today, and so it's like you have this kind of like.
So there's a community building aspect within the app where you where I don't want to say it's social media, but essentially you could create a post in the app that kind of communicates to your community. Yeah. This is what I did this morning, or that, like you just said, this is how I had to modify or whatever. Yeah. Which anyone that's been in sports knows that it's a lot easier to do things when you've got other people around you driving you and pushing you. Some people are pretty self-motivated. And honestly, from what I find, like the people that you and I tend to associate with and hang out with are pretty self-motivated, right? We kind of are drawn to those people. But not everyone's like that. And I think the idea of having a community is a really attractive concept to people. That's why everyone's on social media all the time, because they're looking for a community. But this kind of community is a healthy one.
Absolutely. And it's accountability too. Like, people aren't required to log their sessions for everybody to see, but there's certainly the opportunity to do that. And like, hey, I don't feel like training today, but I know that those guys are. And we're humans. Even myself, I live in a gym all day, every day. And I still fight with like managing time and like, man, I got to get out there. And when I have these team programs going, I don't miss. No way. Like no way, because I know that, the guy I elk hunt with in Colorado, I know I'm going to see his training session come up, a completed session. And I don't want to be that guy, and it's like so powerful, whether you don't have to be a super competitive person to be, to find value and in this accountability to part of your tribe. And I think that to be able to do that with folks that have never met, never will meet, but have a common like-minded, goal-oriented approach to their training and their health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, all of it, to have others around you is so powerful. And that's what's made, XIP here so successful. It's not It's not me per se. I just more like
It's community.
Created it. Yeah. They want to see each other. They want to see their, the other people in the tribe. And, we're really, they're just showing up at the gym, the lab, et cetera, to come train at. But
Is
they
that
want
what
to
you
see
call
each
the
other.
online venue? Basically, the lab. Is that the lab? When you say lab, is that what you're
No,
referring to? Or
that's an exercise science term
oh,
for,
okay,
we just use that for wherever you're trained. The lab is everywhere.
any place you
I
are.
mean, like
Yeah,
literally the lab is when I go for a ruck, that's the woods. It's anywhere that you're implementing this exposure to a stress
yeah.
is
So
essentially your lab.
my 4 miles this morning with my pack was my lab.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And like the lab portion of that, the scientific portion becomes the measuring, the data that you collect. And then, it's like any scientific procedure. You form a hypothesis, stems from a theory, and then you implement it. That's training. I mean, that's what I do. And I'm always taking feedback from the team members. We just started phase 2 of this 12-week program this week. Leading up to this, I'm asking like, hey guys, how you feeling? And what do you like? What don't you like? I mean, I've got over 20 years of doing this. There's still no more valuable data than what these people give me for feedback.
right.
And I don't have an ego so big that I'm, going to tell them, F you, we're going to do this. Sure, there might be some times when I'm like, well, I disagree, but I want that feedback. And for people to know that their coach cares and is listening, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's I think as athletes, that's probably the thing that I miss the most, and it's honestly one of the things that got me into hunting. Which I hate the term late onset hunter, but that's what I am. Like that I
I
hate
love
that term.
that.
But I spent
Yeah.
got done playing. I did all my stuff, right? But I coached college. I coached college football for 10 years. I coached high school football for another, I don't even know how many, but I was on the football field for 40 something years. And last fall was the first time in forever I wasn't around football because I kind of decided I was going to step away from it. My daughter was a senior in high school. I wanted to be there for all her stuff.
Yeah.
And, I got into hunting through a couple buddies. Bert was one of them that I got to know. But what I found in the hunting space was the community was insane. Like I used to coach football just because I wanted to be around other guys, kind of like you had when you're in the locker room. I think that's as men, I think that's one of the things that a lot of men really miss on is they don't connect with other like-minded men. They get married, they have families, all that stuff, just personally from a faith perspective, that's what we're led to do. That's what God tells us and asks us to do is to be good husbands and good fathers. But I think if you're not connected with other men, that think like you, that kind of have the same set of beliefs, but are also driven and determined, like I think that's where a lot of guys start to feel kind of lost in their, when you talk about midlife crises, I think that's what that is for most people. And they go the wrong direction trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
But when you got a community like the one you're building, like that's that support system that, really kind of feeds a part of you that you can lose.
You have to have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a purpose-driven life is, whether it's your faith or your hobbies, your family, we have to have a purpose. And I think that with training, if I have a new athlete, and again, this is at every level.
Sure.
I mean, we train from age 6. I think our oldest client right now, athlete, is 84. No, he just turned 85.
I thought I was going to be the old man in the group. I'm a young pup compared to him.
Well, yeah, that's in-house members. I don't know online. We got about 70 in-house.
Okay.
But if somebody comes in and they don't have a why, and they haven't established that, it might not be that they couldn't have a why. Maybe that's why something you need to help them with. But if they're just training to train, or just, just going through the motions, then that's never, ever going to yield the results that somebody who has a why, has a purpose, the results that they will find from their training. In this case, it's just physical. I mean, this could be mental, spiritual, your faith, family, etc. You have to put time into these things that we want to improve on. You can't expect them to improve otherwise. So that, again, to have that, that, like you said, to have, whether it's men, women, you see it, gender aside, you just have to have a why. And that's, for me at this time, I don't have athletics anymore. That was always my why. It was always my purpose. So hunting that is it, apart from my family comes first always. But if it wasn't for hunting and my connection, like really deep connection with nature and the outdoors, I'd be a lost soul. I wouldn't be a good father or husband, just less effective as a human being,
Yeah.
Which is what's happened that's what we're witnessing with society now. And it's really sad. It really is. So, but that's for me, hunting, whether you're late onset or I was very early onset.
Yeah. I don't want to use the word jealous, but I just think of, guys who, whether their dads did it or they had an uncle or someone who, like really kind of mentored them and they've been doing it their whole life. That's just like such an amazing gift. As I look at it now, trying to learn it, but I'm the same way. Like I was one of those guys, I think because I was so ingrained in sports and this and that I never really connected with the power of nature and with what it gave you. Yeah. And I don't know what it is, but just in the last few years, that has become so important to me. Learning about it, being in it, experiencing it, just even, not, being cognizant, not getting wrapped up in, did I get a shot on something today or whatever? Like there's just literally times where I'll be out there and I'll just stop and be like, this is freaking amazing, and to the point where Sunday I was a total crab. I don't know why, but I just was. Yeah. And after church, my wife is like, just go out to the land. Just go. Like it's an hour from here, like what I lease. So it's kind of a commitment to get out there. Yeah. But she was like, just go out, scout, like get out of here for a few hours. And I literally came back a completely different person, like completely recharged. It's just like, it's life altering, man.
It is. I mean, and we are people of the earth, like that is,
yeah, that's right.
We can't deny that, but yet but
we build all these cities and extract ourselves from it.
I know. And there's some people, I'll tell you a deer story actually. And this
I love deer stories.
Yeah. This is here, I'll give a little bit of a background to folks. I primarily, so I hunt here in the Northeast. 95% of my hunting happens on foot, so on the ground.
Which I'm so glad you're doing this, because honestly, this was the direction I was going to go next, was to talk about this. Yeah, this is something that's I'm super interested in, because just learning to hunt, I spent the entire year in a tree, and I'm super interested in hunting from the ground. So yeah, tell the story, but go into as much detail as you can, because I love this stuff.
Can you still? Yeah, I was sitting in the sunroom there. I was baking.
Yeah, you're good, man.
The sun came out. I was like, holy shit, I'm stripping down. So so my big focus is the month of November is tracking. So we track if there's snow. It's a super traditional way of doing it. There is no more physical way of hunting that I've found. You're on foot all day long, sometimes from before daylight until after dark, sometimes hours after dark by the time you get back to your truck, and you never stop.
Can you do it without snow, or is this pretty much snow?
Tracking without snow, I've successfully harvested one deer on dry ground. Okay. So that's without snow.
Gotcha.
Dry ground hunting. And on that particular day, the conditions were just perfect for me to do that. and I was able to successfully harvest the buck that I was, that I was tracking. And I was in the leaves where we had a bit of it had got cold at night, and the leaves had enough, they were frozen enough that I could see it was a heavy deer.
Gotcha. Okay.
I could see, and I was able to follow. And in that situation, I'm just trying to sound like a deer. So I'll run, stop, grunt. I call a lot to try to cover my noise. I mean, deer are very curious animals.
Yeah. So you're not calling to try to draw a deer in. You're calling to try to cover, like basically to blend in.
Both in that situation, to maybe get them to just want to see me. If they hang around long enough to see me, then that hopefully I can lay eyes on them and make a shot. We hunt with fast action rifles, so I hunt with a pump, and a lot of times I'm hunting without a scope, so we use peep sights. Just because snow it's the stuff that we hunt in is so thick and congested. I mean, you could be soaked in the first 20 minutes of the day.
Okay.
We hunt primarily in wool. And so a peep sight can be a really effective way to just keep your sights clean and devoid of snow and debris. We carry almost no gear, because if you carried a pack, you'd make so much noise and you'd get caught up on things, and you'd never, you'd kill one once in a while, but you can't have a big frame pack. I just switched to a very small pack that fits in the middle of my back. Otherwise, I have pockets sewn into our wool coats, and that's where we carry the little bit of gear, some food, filter for water, knife, drag rope, because we drag these animals out, and sometimes that's a long ways. It can take a couple days. But to give you an idea of a day, we'll start out a lot of logging country, so timber company land, and we're covering ground through, via truck, looking for a track. So, and this is on a snow day, or old snow, whatever.
So you're just looking side of the road, basically trying to pick a track up off the road.
Got it. Yep. You're driving many, many miles before light, looking for a track. You find a track that's big enough to follow. For us, we don't really care about rack size. You would never know what,
right.
It's very rare that until you've been on the track, if the deer has much for horns. So we're totally going by weight. We want a 200-pound animal is really what we're after, or bigger. That's kind of the trophy class for New England.
And that's just based on basically the depth of the impression of the track.
A lot of different characteristics: stride length, width, stagger, the size of the track. But you can have really big deer with a really small hoof. No different than with humans. So there's a lot of characteristics and that's where the experience comes in. Just follow a lot of tracks.
I would imagine.
And you start to figure it out over time, where it's like, holy shit, that's a big buck, or I'm not sure I need to follow this deer to really get an idea of how he moves. Does he step around trees? Is he going through thick stuff, or is he an older deer that is avoiding that? How does he approach a doe track? Scrapes, rubs, everything comes into play. Did he break the frozen ground there, or et cetera? So there's literally hundreds of different characteristics, and this kind of like situational awareness that you develop over time.
And is it always rifle, or do you ever do this with a bow?
One time with a bow.
And that was it?
That was because we got early snow and it wasn't rifle season yet.
Okay.
And it was like, when a tracker knows that there's snow and you could go track a buck, like, you're going to do anything to do it. Now, the cover that we hunt in, you could do it. I mean, there's times when I've snuck up on deer and shot them in their bed, and you could have done that with a bow. But a lot of the times we're taking running shots at animals.
Okay. I got you.
That's why you have to have a fast
that
action
makes sense.
rifle.
Okay.
Because these deer know, they live, we're in their turf. They're trying to escape predators every day. So yeah, you're taking running shots. But yeah, then, you find a track and you're on the hunt until you catch up with that animal. And sometimes you don't. And then you got a long, long walk back at times to the truck. And We typically hunt solo. We have guys that there's a group of us. There's typically three of us, and we will check in through InReach at the end of the day. It's rare. I used to carry radio, but I'm alone so much that it's like I just don't want that extra weight. We'll use the InReach now, and it's just a quick message, hey, I'm okay, or hey, if possible, could you come pick me up? This is where I am. Yeah, and then you're pursuing that animal. Sometimes you'll have another track cross, and you're like, wow, that's fresher, that's bigger. I'm going to take this animal, this buck instead. And yeah, that's how it goes. Now, dry ground, mostly stalking, still hunting. You're scouting. You're looking for a big buck that when there is snow, you can come back to. But there's certainly seasons where we don't have, great snow. And then it just is what it is. You better know how to still hunt and read the land and be a true, predator. And I've shot a lot of nice bucks doing that too. And you just really learn the woods. You learn how to move through the woods, be liquid. You have to be able to move well. And that comes back to the training side of it. Folks athletes, guys that can't move well, like they lack the mobility and that flow, because whether that's injury or just their gait characteristics, etc., maybe wearing too much clothing, footwear, what have you, you will end up not being effective. Like you're going to stick out in the woods because you don't move like an animal. And that really is something that I think that a lot of the new hunters see a lot of the technology as like, this is my in to being a woodsman. I think that's the biggest fault that you could ever make. Honestly, I feel like, in some ways, these social media platforms, the Onyxes, this almost like fake confidence, it's like I can go anywhere because I have Onyx and I watch these videos. So I figured it out. But then you get out there and it's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I can't be successful because you haven't developed the foundational skills to just moving like a true predator. And this form of hunting requires that to the max.
Well, I think that's why you see so many people in a tree, right? It's because you don't have to develop any of that. It's basically like you play the wind, right? You got cameras up, so you know that there's animals in the area, and you're basically, you've got enough sets in different places that, okay, I know that the buck I'm looking for, I know that there's a couple bucks that I like in this area. I know they're hitting these different spots, and so I've got a spot set up or a couple spots set up for every different wind option, and that's how most people are doing it. But so when you're talking about still hunting, now we're not talking about snow now, right? But when you use the word still hunting, can you be like specific about what does that look like? If you're not tracking them in snow, what are you doing?
Yeah. So what I'll do in that situation is I'm looking for cover, whether it's something that I've been in the past. A lot of times I'll use the dry ground, we call it dry ground pound, that up as an opportunity to scout new, like I want to scout new country. I want to put myself in a situation where should there be a buck in this area that I can approach that to be successful. I'm not just, hammering through the woods and just trying to find scrapes and rubs and tracks. I'm going to hunt this because, I'm going to think about the wind. When we're tracking on snow, you don't worry about the wind. It's going to change 4 different times and over the course of 15 minutes. And you're going to probably get blown up by that deer if he knows you're coming at some point. And again, that's why you got to make quick running shots. That's why
you're right. Or you're making a running shot.
Yeah, okay. It just is what it is. Yeah. But when I'm still hunting, I'm gonna approach topography in such a way that I can have the most advantage, possible in a very disadvantaged, situation where you're on the ground and you're moving, and potentially the deer might not be. They might be bedded, feeding. So I'll find I like softwood. Thicker cover because it's going to give me more of a opportunity to, sneak up close. I always like thick cover. Any predator would, you're at more of an advantage. Then I'm going to look for water, because I'm always, no matter what animal type of species I'm hunting, water's key. And then you're thinking about the time of the year. Is it the rut? Is it pre-rut, post-rut? Like, what's going on? I want to find areas with deer, and I'm going to hunt that with hopefully the wind in my advantage. And I'm going to meet.
When you're doing that in an area that obviously you don't have trail cameras, right?
No.
So when you're doing that and I want the wind in my advantage, are you pre-scouting that, like e-scouting that? Because obviously you have to have some kind of a general idea or thought, this is where I think there may be deer, to be able to try to figure out where the wind is in your advantage, right? So I'm assuming you have some idea of that, or you think that as you're moving into an area.
Certainly. And that's in the last decade, you can do that now. So now I'm using,
so and that's doing that.
Back to what I said to the newcomer, for me, using onX is so much more effective because I'm able to use the foundational skills that I've developed and the intuition.
Right.
And then I can take the onX maps and be like, yeah, well, I'm going to hunt it just like this.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's like that for me, us that hunt this way and have for so long, that was a big game changer. But for others, like you might, you're going to get there eventually. They're going to figure it out. But not developing the woodsmanship skills first, I think is of a detriment to developing those, to being successful sooner. You can't crack it, so to speak.
Are you always are you rifle hunting the entire time, or is there any point during the season where you're hunting with a bow? Or are you primarily a rifle guy?
I'll bow hunt. No. I loved archery hunt. Shot a nice bull out west last year with my bow. Shoot bears, deer. And then that just is like the leading up to November. Mm-hmm. So bear season starts here in September. That's when I'll stand hunt.
Okay, gotcha.
And
so you do that for just bear?
Deer also, yeah. And I'll hang cameras for that.
Okay.
I put some cameras out in the big woods here and there, but it's more just for fun. It's like
see what's
chances
out there.
of that camera yielding a kill are like slim to none. These deer are very nomadic. They're moving based on does, and it's just the chances of that happening are slim. But it is, at times it can be effective if there's buck in this area. I think cell cams we need to get rid of them everywhere.
So you like just the card cameras, basically?
Yeah, I use cell cam for bear. Mm-hmm. I just don't invest in it, I just don't use cameras that often. But the still hunting, I think that's probably the most, that in terms of foundational skills for a hunter that's going to hunt on ground, on foot, to be able to move through the woods well and to know when you're approaching, like, hey, I need to be very aware right now that I'm in an area that could hold a buck because of A, B, and C. And then how you move through the woods. I'm really, really anal about moving in the shadows. Like, might sound like, how are you going to avoid the sun all the time? You can avoid it a lot more than you might think. And moving through the woods that way is going to make you much less visible or even present to other animals. Like, people can call it cheesy if you want, but hey, they're connected. Just like you and I established early on, we are connected to this earth and nature. You better believe that those they're a team out in the woods, and those deer are very keen on what if you disturb a grouse or the squirrel all of a sudden screaming at you, like, you might want to just stop and chill out for a little bit and let things settle down. Those are the those are the skills that a good hunter is going to develop over time. And you use those to your advantage.
And so, the shadow things, that makes complete sense to me. And I've had a couple other people, tell me the same thing. I totally believe it. How about in terms of sounding like you belong out there? What do you do there to to blend in and not sound like like a human, to basically blend in with your environment and try to make it
Yeah.
something that sounds like it should be there.
Yeah. That footwear plays a huge role, but also just how you move through the woods. I mean, we had it kind of like pounded into us, not literally, but with my father as kids, it's like we were always just walking on, literally, figuratively walking on thin ice, where it was like, you knew if you snapped a branch, dad was going to snap his head around and give you that look like, the hell's wrong with you, boy? So like you learn how to, pressure the foot and in different types of, if it's dry ground versus snow. Snow is obviously easier to be
Right.
quiet if it's good snow. If it's crunchy old snow, well, that's when I run, and I'll prance, move like a deer, and it's wicked tiring. Like it wears you out. Some people can do it, some people don't, but I love to shoot big bucks, and if that's what it takes to do it, I'm gonna do it. Like
And so
whatever.
what does that cadence sound like? Is it
You just have to be inconsistent.
okay? So
Deer
running and then
don't.
stopping and then a little bit and then a little more.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
just
like put yourself like just kind of like I'm a buck and I'm moving through the woods right now casually.
mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not the rut, it's pre-rut. I haven't been spooked. I'm just moving through, checking things out here and there, checking scrapes. So I'm stop. Maybe I'll scrape the ground with my foot a little bit. Stop, wait, look around. Like that's a great opportunity to just be like looking around you, like pick your head up. And then I'll move again. You just it has to be inconsistent. 2 steps, 8 steps, 1 step. And it's just like I said, it's so tiring. Mentally too, like, your feet, your ankles, but also like your mind. And you just have to be, again, you just have to become a true predator and be, if this means I get to eat today or I don't, as foolish as that might sound for a human, like hunting hungry or in that mindset is
Mm-hmm.
going to make you more effective, and you're going to do whatever is needed.
Are
But we
you
hunt.
are you covering your face and your hands and like everything to try to prevent yourself from being shiny in the woods, or are you just relying on the shadows to do all that work for you?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if it's warm weather, a thin glove. I
Mm-hmm.
do think about that. We wear wool. I work with a great company called Stagger. They're out of Vermont. They're making wool clothing. Prior to that, we wore Johnson woolens. Johnson still makes some amazing gear, all wool because it's quiet
Just
and
because it's
not,
quiet.
yeah, not like this. Some of the synthetic, like the merino wool pants from whoever, First Light or Kuyu or something. Like I have all that stuff. It is not quiet, not quiet
Mm-hmm.
enough. Like there's times when those are what I'm going to wear because it's hot weather, warm something, and I want a cooler pant that moves well.
Yeah.
But when the raspberry bushes and the whips and stuff that we go through are whacking up on your leg like that, whack whack, like that makes a big difference. So wool for the most part. I switched to wearing leather boots. We primarily were rubber, which sucked awful, but we crossed so much water that you kind of had to have it. You otherwise you're taking your boots off every time you cross a river or a brook or something. And when you're doing that in the snow, like that's not comfortable. And you don't carry a whole lot of extra gear.
So you got out of rubber. Now you're wearing something like
Yeah,
a Gore-Tex leather or something now with a gator,
no,
or what?
I wear a Schnee's Timberline.
Okay.
And there's times when I'll stud the sole, but I
Mm.
also have created, it's been 2 years in the making, a wool gaiter that is waterproof. And without saying too much, I'm working with a company right now. We should have some. We were doing R&D last year and the year before on some that my seamstress she like makes dresses and does shit like that.
Makes
She's
dresses
like,
and wool
what
gaiters for
in the,
hunters.
yeah, she's like, what in the hell are we doing now? But they came out really well. They worked. They were effective. There's a few tweaks that a commercial, whatever you call them, seamstress or something, will do a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But that allows me to have waterproof up to my knee, and then still wear leather boots, which is just so much more comfortable, energy efficient, and you just have to be quick when you're moving through water with them, just get in, don't be standing in the river.
And you don't worry as much about the smell, the scent with leather boots versus rubber. You don't think there's a significant difference? I know that's
We're
kind of
moving.
one of the things that everyone's like, oh, rubber boots are so much better with scent. But that's the kind of a tree stand mentality too.
Correct.
Like you're walking into your stand, you're going up there, that's where you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. No, when I stand hunt, I'm thinking about all those things. I'm spraying down. My clothes hang outside before I hunt.
Yeah.
I'm washing them. I'm really anal about that. Especially if I think, a deer or bear are actually super keen on that.
Yeah, I've never hunted bear, but I have heard that their noses are incredible.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wicked.
You may have
I'm
to
doing
come up to
all those
Vermont
things.
for a bear hunt, dude.
We get so many bears. It's insane.
Black bear?
Oh, it's going, and a lot of houndsmen, but guys they don't kill them. They'll tree them, and they'll run the dogs, and then they'll leave. We've got a real problem. Like there's a lot of bears, too many bears, that you just need more. We need more management. People have to understand also that they're good eating. That's why I never
Yeah.
hunted them. I
I
didn't
mean,
think they were
I was
good.
going to say there's a reputation, and now I've talked to a lot of people like, Jen and Johnny Ribbit and a lot of those people
Yeah,
that hunt bear, and they say if you make it right, it's really, really good. But it does kind of have a reputation of being a nasty tasting meat. So I think there's a kind of a conception out there that, well, I don't want to hunt bear because what I hunt, I'm going to eat, and it doesn't taste good.
right. That's the way I always was until I
You
finally
figured
was
out how
like,
to cook it?
well, yeah, I mean, it was easy. I mean, it was more that this stigma that was like everybody said they taste like shit, so I'm not gonna even waste my time hunting them. But for us, that's early meat. It's September, that season opens September 1st, and I just saw enough where it was like, I feel like I'm gonna shoot a bear, and shot a real nice bear. My first one with a bow. It was a 300-pound bear, and that meat was, oh, like you look at it and it's like there's no way this can taste bad. And I think that what happens is, I mean, when that animal hits the ground, because of the fat, the
Mm-hmm.
internal temperature, I mean,
It's high. You got to get it out quick,
oh
probably,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I think it's like 150 to 160 degrees
Okay.
soon. So you got to get them caped out. You got to
Yeah.
get that meat cooled down, get them on ice. And we've been so happy with it. I rendered all the fat. Asked Bert, he got some beard balm out of it. I
Oh
brought,
yeah.
they're strong.
There you
That
go.
stuff's amazing. I mean, bear fat is such a great, we use it for like, if kids or us, whatever, you have skin conditions. It's just a really amazing natural substance for skincare. I cook my breakfast. I had elk sausage, you know, farm or grass free range eggs, and I cooked it in bear fat.
How do
This
you?
morning.
And so, what do you do? You once you break it down, what do you actually do with the fat? Do you like? Do
Put it
you
in,
you just
put it
take
in,
it as it comes off, or do you cook it down and like what do you do with
render it.
it?
Yeah, you render it down, which is
Okay.
pretty easy. You just put it in a pot.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I freeze it, and then in cubes, and then I grind it.
Okay.
I run it through the grinder, and then I'll render it. And this is going to yield more product in the end, more fat, because you'll get these things called cracklings, which are like the best tasting thing ever. These little pieces of bear fat that are
Uh
like
huh.
fried cracklings. Oh my God. Put that on, like yogurt or something. It's like, whew. But you'll end up with more of the lard than the cracklings if you grind it first. And we
Yeah,
use that.
I think I know that. Like you do all that stuff at home, right? You're not taking any of this stuff to a processor, so you're breaking everything, breaking all the animals down yourself. You're
Yeah.
grinding your own meat. You're like you said, you're rendering all the fat from. How much fat comes off of a bear? Like how much fat did you take off of that bear?
That bear had a lot. The bear I shot last year didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the timing. Every animal's a little different.
How big is your freezer? I cannot like.
I
How
have
many do you
three.
have, and how big are they?
I have three. I had to get another one this year. I
Yeah.
had a I had a really good year last year. I started with that bear, and then drew the tag. It was unplanned. I low on staff this year, and it was like I can't go out west. I've been going out west since 2019. I have a really great friend who actually didn't grow up with him, but he's from this area. My wife grew up with his sister, and he's a big elk hunter. He moved out to Colorado just to hunt elk, and reached out, and we got chatting, and yeah, he's like, yeah, if you ever want to do it, let me know. And I was like, well, I want to do it. So I went out, and he's a Northeast hunter as well. So we just matched really well in the woods, and
Mm-hmm.
um, he taught me a lot about elk. And I was, he warned me, you're going to be hooked, and this is going to be another expense every year for you. But yeah, I went out this past year, shot the bear. He had shot a bull opening weekend, and he is in Colorado, and he said, if you were able to draw that unit in a leftover, he's like, I'll send you a waypoint. He's like, I won't be around. He was going to another state,
Uh-huh.
but he says you'll figure it out. So
So you went out and did it by yourself.
I went out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
ended up drawing the tag, and I'm like, didn't think that was going to happen. So then I
Yeah.
did. I was like, well, shit. Now I got to close down the shop. So I put everybody on online.
Dang, I have to go hunt elk. Oh crap.
I know. So I left. Yeah, it would happen over the course of like 10 days. I was like, all right, here we
How long
go.
did you go out there for?
So I had 5 days to hunt,
Okay.
and I flew in, rented a car. I had sent stuff to his house. So I went to his house, grabbed my gear that I had sent, coolers and stuff, and packed up the Jeep and headed to the waypoint that he sent me. And I got there that first day. It was about 3:30. I pulled in.
What was the elevation you were at?
That was about, I think I parked at 95, and then I hiked to about 10.2.
And do you have, so this is just obviously just a personal question, but for somebody who's getting ready to go do this, who's pretty much at sea level,
mm,
what, from a preparation standpoint, do you just feel like your fitness put you in a good enough position to handle that? Because I hear all this stuff about acclimation and the sea, the difference in altitude.
yeah,
What are your thoughts around that, having done it now for a few years? For
absolutely.
somebody.
Yeah. So it is, it's there, but I do believe that the training world has
Mm-hmm.
used that as like this opportunity to, force training on you. It's there. It's a variable,
Okay.
but here, the physiology of elevation, uh, acclimatization is going to take 7 to 10 days. You're going to need to be there and spend time to truly have an effective response to that elevation. So
Which most people don't have. Like most
we
people
don't have
can't. We
that.
can't go in there and spend 7 to 10 days to acclimate before you go hunt. Like that's just
That's
not
right.
feasible.
So I do the training effect. So a lot of our programs, especially our backcountry programs that are geared towards the Western hunter,
Uh huh.
I incorporate training stimuluses that will do the best possible to basically just improve your oxygen delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So the more effectively that you can deliver oxygen to the muscle, VO2 max will come into that. But
Yeah.
you don't have to be an elite level athlete to be really good in the mountains and not live there. I do believe you need to be fit. You need to minimize the opportunities for like power leaks. So like if you have shitty footwear or weak feet and ankles, that's something that our programs spend such a big amount of time goes into feet and ankles, because if you
Okay.
don't have those, you can't hunt the way that you need to. And that's a power leak, an energy leak. So finding those spots, your foundation and your chassis, like, cause you're going to lug a pack. It's not going to be a super heavy pack, like my
That's
pack's like 20 to 30 pounds max.
okay. So that was going to be. You hear about all these guys going in with these heavy packs, and I know if you got meat, it's heavy,
Yeah.
But you're not going in with a 50, 60 pound pack. You're going in with a 20 to 30 pound pack.
It all depends. Like if we're going to bivvy hunt and we're going to have a spike camp, we've certainly done that. You know, I had one year I brought in like a nice camera and fuck, I think my pack was probably 60-ish pounds on the way in. Food, you know, like how long you're going to be in there. We had water, but in this situation, I was hunting I was car hunting. So
Okay. I
was
got you. So
hiking in.
you were coming back to the car every day.
Correct. Yeah. So I
Okay.
had the camp set up there.
That makes sense.
But
You can go a lot lighter.
right, absolutely. So I hammered in that first day and kind of got elevation. It was more like to observe. I wanted to listen for bugle, anything, see sign, etc. But I wasn't going to just dive in. And I got into bulls the first night.
Wow.
And I actually brought in 3 satellites that I called in, and I had one of them. You know, I was going to shoot the first branch antlered bull that I had an opportunity at, and I had it was a really decent bull. I had him at about 50 yards, and it just didn't have a clear shot. The wind was starting to switch. It was like 5:30, you know, in the evening. I was above them. Things were starting to drop, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. You know, I don't want to blow this place up. So I headed out, came back in the morning, got right back on. There was a herd bull and like 4 satellites. Got right back on them. I was, you know, I wanted that herd bull, and I got in there. I got close. I was under 100 yards. And
what part of were you bow hunting this or gun hunting this?
This is archery. Yeah, I only archery hunt for elk now.
And what time of like were you pre-rut, rut? What time of the month were you in there? So like
middle. It was like
middle
end of the
third
month.
week of September. Okay.
Yep, it's exactly. It was like the 23rd, I think.
So you had all these. So you had bulls with their herds, and you were. That's interesting. I've been like studying that a lot. You know, like you got to hunt them so much differently than you do the beginning of September when they're when they're kind of breaking off their bachelor groups, but before they get their cows pulled together.
Yeah, I think your safest bet, especially for archery hunting, if you don't want to deal with like the muzzleloader crowd, if you're hunting OTC, you know, if you've got a really awesome draw unit, I mean, find whatever the perfect date, moon phase, and everything is, and do that. But in this situation, I really was kind of limited on what I could do anyway. But yeah, I got in there. I had some interaction with that bull, but I could tell he didn't want anything to do with. He was moving his herd, so I let him go to bed. Made a stalk up around. That was where I felt some elevation. We got up to about 10.5, but I had to do it fast.
Now was this the evening now?
No, it was about 10:30 a.m.
Okay, so all right. So he was bedded for the afternoon or whatever, and you were okay.
Yeah, I knew he was really responsive to cow calls, but he was not responding to bull.
Yeah,
and I could tell the way he acted to satellite vocalizations that I really was going to need to be careful with calling. So worked my way, got the wind, got above them, and they were just bedded in a really like open area where they had the advantage, and a cow spotted me, so I blew the herd out, and I decided to follow down into this big canyon, and I just kind of poked along. You know, he was bugling every like 25 to 40 minutes, and I just keep tabs on, and I just slowly worked my way through this really thick draw, right where my buddy had said, you don't want to kill one down there. If you're alone, you know. Well, I ended up calling in one of the satellites, and I aired him at like 20 yards, and then the work began. That's when the heavy pack.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you have anybody did you have a pack or anybody, or did you pack the whole thing out yourself?
Yeah, I did it all myself. I had so
how far back to the rig?
It was like 2.5 miles. It was pretty steep for the first mile. And I mean, I decided to do it in 4 trips.
Yeah.
And I decided to do it alone. I wanted to do it alone because my buddy Kevin had killed one and packed it out. He hunts solo unless I'm out there with it. I said, well, I train him. If he did it, I have to do it.
I got to be able to do it, right?
So, oh man, it's like, well, I'll do it 4 trips. I got time. I got 3 days, and it was cool. So I packed out the first one. I got back at like 11,
Did you just
that
hang
night.
it, or did you find a stream, or what did you
Yep,
do with it while you were?
it was good. It was in a canyon. It was
Oh,
cool.
okay, gotcha.
And I knew that I didn't have to worry about the heat side of it. Yeah, made the first trip out, got to the truck, napped a little. It was an hour and a half to a little store to get some ice, got ice, came back, and I started back in at like 6 a.m. for the next load. And that was when I decided I'm going to do this in 3.
Mm-hmm.
So the second load was 2 hinds. I don't know, it was like 110,
I was
115.
gonna say, how much did that weigh? That was not
That was
light.
heavy. That was
Yeah.
brutal. I got a video on our YouTube page of that, like doing hard things. And it's like, oh my God.
So let me ask you a question, because I've thought about this so many times. So when I rucked this morning, my pack was about 60, 65 pounds, right?
mm,
Now I've got that thing cinched up as tight as I can around my waist. Like I've kind of got it, but it still kind of wants to fall,
mm,
right? And now obviously I don't have it on a shelf. It's just kind of in the pack. So maybe that makes a difference, but
huge difference.
it does it make a big difference?
Oh,
That
yeah.
was going to be my question, was like, how,
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that being twice as heavy. But you're saying the load shelf is completely different, the way it carries?
Yeah. If you're over like even 25 pounds, 30 pounds, and
Yeah.
it's like a sandbag or something,
That's what it is. It's a sandbag.
yeah, then you're going to want to use that shelf, and then you can adjust how that rides on your back. In our videos, so like in our pack training programs,
Mm-hmm.
and also I think a lot of my videos aren't public. I'll keep them unlisted and just use them exclusively for the folks that buy programs.
Yeah.
But I do have a pack setup video on our YouTube page, and we cover all that. But you'll definitely want to set it up on your shelf and then get it up a little higher on your back. You don't want to go too high because then you're going to end up with a forward lean.
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely want to have more mid back. And then I don't like to have super tight on my hips.
Yeah.
Like that strap shouldn't be really tight. You want to be able to breathe for one, and you don't want to have to breathe just into your chest. So if you're really tight down low, like it should be set up around your belly button,
Yeah.
there-ish, and you're really tight there. Well, now I can't expand. Your diaphragm expands down. So when we're breathing, we should be getting like this combination of rib expansion, but also the diaphragm wants to expand down into our belly. So you should be expanding through your belly and also into your like lumbar spine. So think of it like this tube, and I'm going to just inflate that thing in the front, in the back, and the sides versus this up high in our ribs, which yields a hyperextended position and is going to be overactive for your paraspinals or your spinal erectors, the things that like people talk about. Oh my God, my low back gets so tight when I'm carrying a heavy pack.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably in your breathing and in your setup of the pack. You want to make sure that your load lifters, are at about a 45-ish degree angle. And then you don't want to have super tight on your waist strap, in my opinion. That should be moderately tight. And then you're trying to carry that uniformly through your chassis, basically, not have these pressure points where, things are setting. I will adjust for incline. So when I get into a steep incline, your body has to lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's impossible to have, especially if you got heavy load, like
Right.
You're going to lean even more. So when that happens, you're compressing that lower abdominal area. I will release my straps then to relatively loose. Okay. And I'll pull the load lifters just a little bit tighter because remember, I have to lean into this hill.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is your hip flexors are going to light up a little bit. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. It's never going to be perfect. You're carrying something really heavy on your back, and it just is what it is. Turn around, stand facing the other way, facing downhill, give a little release there. You can lean up against a tree. When I brought out the 2 hinds, any rock, big boulder or tree leaning that I could find, I would lean on. I didn't take the pack off the entire time because I didn't want to have to reload it.
Yeah.
That's hard, and that can yield a lot. That's where guys get hurt, is putting the pack on. But yeah, that setup is really important.
And you've got that like a whole thing on that inside their training program.
Yeah. The athletes who purchase training,
Right.
they get they get a lot of it. But like I said, there's a pack set up on our YouTube page, which I'm starting to grow that now, and trying to educate folks on things, and that's definitely in there. I also have a tent recovery, recovery module that you can do in really tight spaces, because that can play a big role for somebody that's bivvying out and sleeping out of a tent for 3, 4, 5 days.
That's good information. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I could sit here and talk to you all day about this stuff, but I know people can only listen for so long, so we may have to do another one.
Do another.
Yeah, the information is amazing, man. It's so good, and I'm gonna talk to you offline about a bunch of this stuff too, as I kind of get ready to go out west for my first elk hunt this fall. And to be honest with you, that's what got me into hunting. That's kind of what I got excited about, and then I was like, well, I got to learn how to hunt. So I'm hunting whitetail, and I like it, but this is really what I'm jazzed about, is getting out there and getting on the ground and doing a lot of the stuff that you're kind of already doing up in Vermont. So I'm excited about getting on your program and working with you, brother. And I really appreciate your time being here. I know you did a discount code, right, for people if somebody listens to this and they want to engage with you online or at the gym. What did you line up there? What'd you call it?
So the discount code they're going to use, this is for any of your followers, anybody listening, RA for Ridgeline Athlete, RA do not go 30. So those are all caps. And I kind of skipped
30%.
30%, yeah.
Dang, that's a big one. And I'll put that too. I'll put that in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, you can just look in the show notes, whether it's on iTunes or YouTube or whatever, and I'll make sure it's in there.
And I probably we bounced over it earlier on that XIP is my bricks and mortar, but Ridgeline Athlete, and that's the RA in that code. Ridgeline Athlete is the sister brand to XIP Training. And that's our online platform and in-house. We have a bunch of, I've been training backcountry athletes. My first client was going on an elk hunt 23 years ago.
And that's what you're going to be training me for, brother.
That's right. Yeah. I have plenty of experience with it. You're going to do great, man.
I'm super stoked about it. So I'll put that in the show notes. It's RA, do not go 30. And then on Instagram, you're Ridgeline Athlete, right?
Ridgeline Athlete is where they can find, more of this content, backcountry athletes.
So check it out. Dude, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me. I learned a ton, Bran. I'm going to go back and listen to this on my own probably 3 or 4 times.
Like you said, we could probably go on forever. Maybe we get closer to the season. We'll get on, tell some stories and more hunting tactics.
Yeah, I like that. That'd be great. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right.
Thanks.